Welcome, friends, to Breakfast in the Ruins, a Michael Moorcock-flavoured podcast. As you'll know, if you're a listener, we do embrace various flavours beyond Moorcock from time to time. Other things from our formative years that had an impact on us. And one of those things that we talked about last year was Blake 7. More specifically, the first novelisation of the first part of Series 1 by Trevor Hoyle. Because we had such a great time with that, we thought we'd have another crack, so John is back to talk about the second Hoyle novelisation, Project AVALON, a whistle-stop tour of the second half of that first series. For the watching part of this effort, I had a nice upgrade too, in the shape of last year's Series 1 Blu-ray release, which I can heartily recommend if you're a fan of the show. And, as I'm recording this, I can see that the pre-order link for Series 2 has gone live now too. Bonza. So, warm up your curling tongues, get someone to mind the stall, set time distort 5 for the planet Aristo, and join us as we settle into Trevor Hoyle's Project AVALON. We're back in Derry and Tom's, and welcome back, John. John is back.
Hi there. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. And, of course, last time out, we spoke about the Trevor Hoyle novelisation of the first few episodes of Blake 7. So I seem to recall, at the time, I thought, fuck it, and bought 2 copies of the next one, Project AVALON, and sent you one. And then it got buried amongst stuff, and I completely forgot about it. Until you dropped me a line a few weeks ago and says, should we do that next Blake 7 novel? I was like, oh yeah, let's crack on and do it.
Yeah, well, I've had the opportunity to read it twice now. Read it through the end of last year.
Yeah.
And then skim read it, and I've also watched the episodes. And surprised to see there were five episodes covered in the book. Which is a bit of a surprise. I thought we might be talking about
how many were there in the first one?
I'm not sure. It was quite covered. I'm not sure it was that many. I was thinking 2 or 3, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it was fucking ages ago, so my memory is completely broke down and forgotten most
Who knows?
Yeah.
Five seemed a lot.
Yeah.
And I think they have skimmed at least one of the episodes, as you said this morning. Yeah. It's about 9 pages. And I thought, when I watched the episodes this time, I didn't watch them last time. And when I went through, I thought, I don't remember any of this. With all those cavemen running around. I thought, where's that in the book? But,
well, funnily enough, I got the Blu-ray for Christmas of season 1. So I said to Phil, right, we're doing this Blake 7 novelisation. It covers 5 episodes, so I'm going to watch them this week. So we started watching them, and then I suddenly realised, it skips episodes. It's the second half of the Series 1, but it only includes the ones that form an arc of sorts around Blake and co. being hunted by the Federation. And a couple of characters, of course, who we'll talk about, who were fucking wonderful. I think we touched on them in the last episode, but neither of them appeared in that novelisation because it was too early in the series. But it skips 3 episodes that are standalone episodes, although one of which... Actually, two of them have great Avon moments, but one of them has a great bit of Avon development, which and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about Avon and how he is in season 1 compared to later seasons as we go along. So we're going to talk about those 5 episodes, and we're going to talk about Trevor Hoyle's novelisation of those 5 episodes. And, I'll probably comment to some degree on certain aspects of watching it on Blu-ray as well, but I won't go into that in any depth. Like, I won't give it, ratings out of 5 for visual aesthetics and quality and sound and all that business. I'll just go, you can see more of the outfits as a result of the high quality 16mm footage, which there's a lot of. And I think when you watch it on DVD or on YouTube or something, because the quality of it is generally, a little bit fuzzy, you can tell the difference between the studio camera footage and the 16mm footage that they use if they're in a quarry or something like that. But on the Blu-ray, blimey, those 16mm sections really look fantastic. Lots of nice film grain. Oh yeah, it looks wonderful. But before we crack on, I'm going to have to open a beer. We're recording on a Saturday afternoon, but the sun is past the yard arm. Have you got yourself a beverage there?
I have, yeah. I've got an old standard, really, a Hobgoblin Ruby beer. Have you tried that one?
I do like a Hobgoblin, yeah. Phil got me the Imperial Ruby not so long ago, which I think is 6 point something. But I've always liked Hobgoblin.
Yeah, I've not tried that. Yeah, some of those drinks, you look at the, what's that company? Is it Brewdog or whatever they're called? And you think, you shouldn't touch those anymore. And I don't think there's any problem with Hobgoblin at the moment, so I carry on drinking them. And that's a good drop. I like their stout as well. That's a good drink.
I've not had Hobgoblin stout.
That comes in a classic. Yeah, it comes in a classic beers selection that Tesco do. They send out 6 bottles. And I've got that occasionally when we get snowed in. I think I'll get some beer from Tesco, and they do 6. And one of them is the Ruby, one of them's the Hobgoblin Stout, and that's very good.
I'll have to look out for that because, I've had the Hobgoblin Gold or Amber, whatever it is. But I've always liked Hobgoblin because I tend to like red ales and ruby ales. Like, one of my favourite hand-pulled beers for years was Cameron's Strong Arm. And you don't
we've drunk that.
We have.
Yeah. I can't remember, was it in Chesterfield or somewhere?
I think it probably was, yeah. I mean, you don't see that many Cameron's pubs anymore because they've all been rebranded ahead of steam. It wasn't a Cameron's pub, I don't think. I think it was a free house in Chesterfield. Yeah, but it was Strong Arm.
Yeah, it was a nice place. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to drink, and I can't remember if I've had this on here before, but it's What's the Buzz Imperial Stout with marshmallow, caramel and chocolate at 8.4%, which is probably a bit of a disastrous way to start an afternoon.
Yeah, I was looking at some of those strong stouts, and I thought, I'm not drinking them on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose if you want to actually get anything else done later on today.
Yeah.
I was looking in the fridge, not in the fridge, I was looking in my beer box, and I think things have got really confusing on the beer front because Loz will come over. So Loz came over when we recorded episode 101 around Christmas time. And I'd got 2 cans of a load of stupid beers, and Loz brought some as well. And as a result, I've now got beers left over. I can't remember what we drank on episode 101. So I know that there's some in there that we never got to, and there's some in there that we've drunk already. And I just thought, right, I'll leave the ones that are paired, and there's 2 of them. So I know that we never drank those, but these other ones could have been one-offs that Loz brought that we did drink or didn't. I can't actually remember. But this so Lakes Brew Company, What's the Buzz? When all you want is a treat, what better way to celebrate our 3rd birthday with soft fluffy marshmallow, layers of seductive caramel, all wrapped up under a blanket of chocolate. If this doesn't hit the spot, we aren't talking the same language. This is our cheeky take on the classic New Zealand chocolate bar, a buzz bar. And just reading that, I now seem to think that I read that out on microphone before. So this might be one of the episode 101, leftovers, but let's give that a go. Oh, yeah, it's very sweet. It's got that brake fluid aftertaste of a strong imperial stout or porter. Right, anyway. So this book, published 1979. Have we got the same cover? I've got the one with Blake
that's the one.
Firing some kind of weapon that reminds me of one of those ice lollies that you used to get when you used to squeeze it and the frozen ice pop would protrude outwards from it.
Is that a Calippo?
Yes, whereas I think this is supposed to be an energy bolt of some description, but it looks a cross between a Calippo...
Could be a Calippo, yeah.
Yeah, cross between a Calippo and an energy-saving light bulb. But yeah, it's okay. Published 1979. What does it say on the back?
Yeah.
Alone against the might of the Federation, an army of androids and Project Avalon. Well, army of androids is over-promising, ever so slightly, I think. From the arid wastes of Amasat, planet of the dead, to the oceans of acid on the planet Aristos, Rog Blake and his crew on board the Liberator wage a deadly war against the forces of galactic oppression. But now the Federation's Supreme Commander Servalan and her Lieutenant, the evil and embittered Space Commander Travis, Servalan and Travis, are launched upon a plan that cannot fail. Their aim to capture the Liberator, to trap and destroy Blake 7, to defeat forever the freedom fighters of the universe. So there we go. So it all kicks off with episode Seek, Locate, Destroy, although of course it doesn't say that in the book, it just says Part 1. So when I was rewatching this, I've got to say, you get a nice... One of the things that's really good about reading a novelisation, especially by Trevor Hoyle, is you get a little bit of added dimensionality to everything. Because when you're watching the episode, it is Blake running around in a factory in the Midlands or somewhere, and with a routine robot surveillance system, which in the book sounds really exciting, but on the TV looks like a more angular Metal Mickey trundling
Metal
along.
Mickey that's the note I've made there. It's terrifying.
It's a 3-armed Metal Mickey with less character. It doesn't have Metal Mickey's Jericho, does it? So it's got less character.
No.
But we have to talk about Blake's acting. Gareth, was it Gareth? Not Gareth Thomas, he was the rugby player. Anyway,
Thomas.
Gareth. It was Thomas, right? So he was same, right?
It's Tom. Yeah, I made that mistake. I called him Gareth Edwards, and you corrected me, so it's stuck in my mind now. It's Gareth Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Oh, now I'm getting even doubly confused. Right, Gareth Thomas. But we're going to talk about his acting.
It's Gareth something.
Gareth something. Everything he does is so heightened and ridiculously earnest, and there is something about the acting that you get on British TV at the time where all these people have come through stage and everything else. And it's not like you can't talk about Avon not being heightened in his delivery as well. But there's something about Blake when I'm watching him, when he's sneaking around that factory. He's like that kid you used to play soldiers with when you were 8, who's super OTT about everything and puts additional like mad flourishes on things. So when him and Villa are sneaking around, Villa's like, sneaking around and is slightly crouched. Blake is pressing himself back against a wall, like, really, really, really dramatically. And the bit where Metal Mickey comes around the corner and he throws himself to the pavement, it's just so over the top. It's quite amusing, really. Because we've got a heist mission at a factory in the Midlands. Some space planet to nick a MacGuffin, resulting... but anyway, long story short, Callie gets left behind and nobody notices for ages, which is quite funny. Yeah. But the other thing to observe is in the book, it talks about at times it'll talk about their smocks or their gear, or when they're on the Arctic planet, their Arctic jackets that they're going down in. But actually, they're going adventuring outfits, I think we need to talk about. It's like they all went and got matching gear from a camping shop in Fort William.
Yeah.
It looks like the kind of stuff you get on as a prize on Family Fortunes in the early 90s. It's like, camping jackets for the entire family. And yeah, it's pretty bad. I mean, at least there's no flares, I suppose. So that could be worse. But they go down to this place. I can't remember. What are they after? They're after a Federation...
It's a cipher machine.
Yes. It's the Federation version of the Enigma machine.
That's exactly what it is, yeah. Yeah. And Avon knows what it is, and he knows its power, and it seems to encrypt messages.
Yeah.
And with that, they get the opportunity then to intercept messages from the Federation and find out what they're up to.
So the cool thing about this is it means that they can basically be like, Bletchley Park on a spaceship for the Federation, for the rebellion, for the resistance. And the problem is that they have this, this exciting heist, but Callie gets left behind because she gets mugged by the people she's supposed to be guarding. Everybody teleports back up to the Liberator, and nobody noticed Callie's missing until they're fucked off and flown off about halfway through the solar system. Then someone goes, where's Callie? It's like nobody noticed.
Yeah, that's it. I think Blake wants to give her a job. He says, Callie can do that.
Yeah.
Where is Callie? Hang on. But you do that in a school. You count them off, count them back in. Have we got our set? It's Blake 7. Where are you 7?
Yeah.
Oh, we're down to 6. It's not like it's Blake 47. Oh, yeah, we've missed one.
There was only 4 of them went down.
Yeah, that's it.
Only 3 of them came back, and nobody notices. It's brilliant. Yeah. But of course, you've got the usual setup, haven't you, where someone's on the teleporter console. There's some really amusing teleporter console moments, as we'll go through. We'll mention a couple of them. But you know what? All this is secondary. So we've got the setup. They've had the heist. They've got the MacGuffin, which is the Enigma machine, the space Enigma machine. And Callie is now locked up and she's going to get tortured and everything else. But all that is secondary, because this episode and this part of the story is our introduction to Servalan. And I know we talked about Servalan last time. But
it's unavoidable, really. Yeah.
Oh, Servalan.
Yeah. And some of the description in the book, I don't know if I could find it, but he speaks in such beautiful terms about her, just her looks, her figure, how young she looks. And he's clearly spent time studying this Supreme Space Commander. And
the mannerisms, the massive eyes, the form-fitting white dress, the elocution, the evil that she drips. It's just perfect. And she was perfectly cast as well.
The eyebrows.
Oh, yeah. But the book description, yeah, I've got it here. And again, when we're talking about that little bit of additional dimensionality that he adds to it, it says, the huge silver space station that was Federation Command headquarters turned slowly on its axis. Sorry, pardon me for a second while I put my reading glasses on, which I always forget I need these days. There we go, it's all big now. It was the nerve centre for all military and counterinsurgents operations in this quadrant of the galaxy, representing the absolute rule of the Federation over countless star systems. Its supreme commander was Servalan. That she had achieved a position of such immense authority amazed those who met her for the first time. They were taken aback by her youth, her elfin beauty, her slender, boyish figure that seemed strangely at odds with the total power she wielded, and the onerous responsibilities of high office. But she had been groomed from birth, trained as both skilled military strategist and deviously clever administrator, and no one was left in any doubt as to her ability after a single encounter with this ice-cold, shrewdly intelligent, and ruthless young woman. Oh, very good. I mean, on one count, talking about her slim, boyish figure, I can't really get down with because she's got almost a perfect hourglass figure, hasn't she?
Yeah, yeah.
But that lovely description of her as a fantastically trained bureaucrat and administrator just taps into that central core thing about the Federation, is all of the biggest villains that you get in the early parts of Blake 7, probably Travis aside, are all bureaucrats who do horrific things. Like in the first novelisation, those first episodes, the judges, the councillors, the politicians, they're all just hideous administrators and bureaucrats who just oversee the worst fucking things and the worst excesses of a totalitarian government. Oh, great stuff. Great stuff. And it never
who
lets
she
that go.
reminds me of? Yeah, when you hear her voice, I was just thinking it's Margaret Thatcher, but a young, beautiful space Thatcher.
Yeah.
The way she manipulates the men, and they're so scared of her, and they suck up to her, and you know, on the one hand she's seductive, on the other hand she's cruel.
Yeah.
But she's got this way, and I thought that's probably how she'd have been a contemporary. Thatcher came; she was leader of the Tories in 1975. So whether she'd spent much time on television or even studied that and thought, I'm going to play her as... But the voice is very, very similar. And of course, it was after that Thatcher came to power.
Actually.
But I couldn't help but make that connection with you've got a woman in power leading these spineless little drippy men.
Yeah.
Which is the way that Thatcher used to run her cabinet.
Yeah, and her first scene, she's got a couple of drippy Norman Tebbit lookalikes.
Yeah,
hasn't she? One of whom, the guy playing Secretary Ron Tarr, I can't remember the guy's name, but he had loads of ace roles as nasty, slimy bureaucrats. He's
just a worm, isn't he?
Yeah, he was Davros's nasty right man, Nida, in Genesis of the Daleks.
Right. Yeah. I have seen him before then, yeah.
And of course they're wearing overtly Nazi SS-inspired uniforms in that as well, aren't they?
But she's wearing silky white robes.
Oh, yeah, often with a big plunging, although high collar, and sometimes fair lined, beautifully put together. I mean, the costumiers on this, basically, like all good sci-fi or action, the villains look fucking great. Heroes, not so much.
No.
Yeah, in fact, I don't think any of our heroes in any of season 1, and potentially until Sue Lin arrives. Although Dana in season 2 or 3, she comes around the end of season 2, doesn't she? She usually looks pretty good. Jenna, I like some of Jenna's blouses on Blu-ray, look spectacular.
Right.
And they just look amazing. And of course, the next thing we've got, so we've got this again, a little bit of additional kind of detail about things. And this great paragraph on page 22, whereas I think it's a propaganda guy, Burkle. He says, "My department has done all in its power to suppress information about Blake and his actions. There is a total blackout on all reports concerning him." Burkle lifted the rounded bulk of his shoulders in a timid shrug. "But still the stories get out. They're spread by word of mouth, by whispers, by rumours. Each time the story is told, it's elaborated upon. Any damage to the Federation is attributed to Blake. The smallest incident is exaggerated by repetition until it becomes a major event. Blake is becoming a legend, his name a rallying call for malcontents of all persuasions. He must be stopped." He finished in what was meant to sound a defiant note, but came out rather feebly. So you got this great idea that even though I've never been entirely convinced about Blake as a character, it's the whole ensemble, it's everything that's going on in Blake 7 that I love so much. They do set up really nicely that they have this obsession with Blake as a figurehead for the dispossessed and the rebellious. And that really works, and that's really, really effective. And Servalan, well, she's going to sick her dog on Blake and his gang. So we now get not only Servalan in this episode, we get Space Commander Travis. Oh, just inject these two straight into my veins.
Yeah.
They are fucking brilliant. Tell us about Travis.
Yeah. You watch him and he's just mesmerising. Yeah. All those episodes, he steals every single scene he's in.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic actor, I think. And I don't know if you remember him. Stephen Grief is his name. And he played a character called Harry Fanning, I think, in Citizen Smith. Did you ever watch that?
Oh, God, I haven't seen Citizen Smith since I was a kid, so I wouldn't be able to recall it to mind. But yeah, I remember watching it. I can remember watching Citizen Smith at my nana's when I was a kid. You know, to me, watching Citizen Smith, I recall my nana's house with her budgie cage and my great-grandma sitting in the corner in her Shackleton's high seat chair. That's the kind of vibe I get from remembering Citizen Smith. So he was in that as well.
Yeah, Harry Fanning, I think he's a local gangster, but a fearsome character. Along the lines of Peter Vaughan, you're grouty in Porridge. Just, there's something about him that's menacing.
Yeah.
And that's carried across when he plays Travis as well. Just a terrifying, driven man. And in those early scenes, maybe those first couple of episodes, I just started to think, this man is portrayed as a psychopath, but there's so much more to him than that. And I think as the story develops, it's not particularly covered in the book, but we'll get onto it. And I think, there is a humanity to him as well that he hides. But there is a crossover, I think. He reminded me somewhat of Darth Vader. In he's part. He's not just because he's dressed in black, but he does seem to have become part man, part machine.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars, I think, had probably hit cinema by the time this was coming out. But
yeah,
I think we talked about this last time. This was probably being filmed before Star Wars actually made cinema in the UK.
That's it. I don't think he's copied in any way on Darth Vader, but the parallel is there.
But even the look, the outfit, the costume, the black leather, the relief of the Federation symbol on his chest, all black, all matte leather. Fortunately, thanks to the Blu-ray, you can pay a little bit more attention to the costume, as I mentioned. And like a good 70s fascist boot boy, he wears 20-hole black Doc Martens.
I
think
that's a great touch.
They've taken the yellow and black tags off the back. But absolutely brilliant. So he turns up, he's all in black leather or pleather, whatever it is. He's got a giant eye patch that looks like a bit of tar splashed on his face and just set there, which is brilliant. That always stuck in my head when I was a kid.
Yeah.
He's a proper bastard. He's a butcher. Even the other Federation fascists don't like working with him. She has another scene with another Federation officer who she's flirting with and toying with his arm. She's talking to him, got him completely under her control and completely under a spell. And even they're anxious. I mean, these are all brutal, awful fascists and murderers. And it's too much even for them. And this is all set up in like 2 minutes of dialogue. It's terrific. It's perfectly played by Stephen Grief in Series 1, sadly replaced in Series 2 by Brian Croucher, who apparently was Stephen Grief's own recommendation to replace him, so they must have been mates or something. But whereas you've got
not
Grief...
Not a good choice.
No, when you've got Grief with a voice and diction that sounds almost a little bit like Peter Wingard, Peter Wingard when he's not being over the top, it's quite measured. Whereas Brian Croucher sounds like a dozy East End thug by comparison. This Travis is a smart and shrewd operator as well as a massive bastard. And of course, we have to mention he's got his mechanical hand fitted with a laser-on destroyer. And him and Servalan have just got amazing chemistry.
Yeah, the way they interact. There's I wouldn't call it flirtation, but there's a spark between them, isn't there? You can almost feel.
Yeah, and possibly the best 1-2 villain chemistry ever on British telly, I think.
Yeah.
For that brief period, because they only appear together in this form in 5 episodes. And I really feel like I need to watch season 2 now to see what the interplay between Servalan and Brian Croucher version of Travis is like. But my memories of it aren't particularly favourable. But the great thing about him as a villain as well, he hates Blake because Blake cost him his eye. Which is a great setup for a villain. Keep it simple, cool actor, swift introduction that outlines his menace quickly and effectively, relatable motivation, even if he is a massive bastard. And of course, as far as Blake's concerned, he killed loads of Blake's mates too. So, pre-season 1, we know a little bit about Blake's past as a rebellion-struck resistance leader who they brainwiped and brainwashed and turned him into a Federation, like almost robot in order to discredit the rebellion. Prior to this, Travis was part of the setup that caught Blake out, killed loads of Blake's people, but Blake cost him his eye and part of his face. And there's a nice bit in the book as well where it refers to, it's not just his eye that it cost him, it's a part of his face and skull were destroyed, and this is why he has this prosthetic covering up, almost 2/3 of his face. It's great stuff. And what we're also finding with this novelisation is when we read the first one, it was evident it had been written before the series had been cast and broadcast, and it was based upon the shooting script. Whereas this one, the descriptions of the characters actually do match now the series. So the descriptions of Servalan and Travis are pretty close. So yeah, it all works really, really nicely. But another observation about the series, and again, probably only noticed because I watched the Blu-ray, about Blake. In studio scenes, he's always covered in a light sheen of sweat. Like, even when he's sitting and doing a simple dialogue scene, he seems to be working so hard and intensely, he just can't help but sweat. Or he's too impatient to be powdered properly by the continuity team or something. I don't know what it is, but it's only really noticeable on the Blu-ray. Just, it's funny, really. Probably both true, I think, because I think legend has it that Gareth Thomas got quite difficult and up his own arse at some certain point. If that's not true, I apologise to Gareth. I think he left because he was wanting to direct, and they were like, "No, you're all right." Yeah. So
and I don't think I liked the direction. I remember, I think I mentioned it the last time we recorded, that he was moving towards, I think he described it as space fantasy, and he didn't like that direction. No, it could have been something else, but there was certainly an annoyance in the direction the series was taking. But I will go back. There's just this bit I've picked up here in the book about Travis, where Servalan describes him. She says, Travis is an advocate of total war, Servalan pointed out stonily. He carried out his orders with meticulous thoroughness. And then the bloke says, but the man is a butcher. So completely diametrically opposed views that Servalan is just playing down. That this man is just a monster. He will just kill. And we saw that in the first book that we covered. He just slaughters people. And later on, he does the same thing without a care in the world.
Yeah, and I think when we covered the first one as well, another strange little piece of incidence in this. There was that character Dev Tarrant, in the first story, who was a traitor to the Resistance, and we were like, oh, Del Tarrant becomes a member of the crew, who's a Federation officer turncoat in season 3. Del Tarrant, any connection? And apparently it was just, no, Terry Nation was just really lazy when it came to naming conventions. But there's a character later on in this who's also called Del as well. So, although I don't think you ever hear that name when you watch it on the telly, but it's much more notable in the novelisation. But anyway, the rescue Callie, Travis gets an "I'll get you, Blake" moment at
Fantastic.
the end. Again, there's just a little bit of additional nice detail when Callie, in the series, Callie, she's laid on a bed in a room, I don't know, with a couple of things stuck to her head with a couple of wires. But in the novel, he has the luxury to add detail and flavour and expand things out a little, but without being intrusive or over the top. So it says, it seemed to be a room without dimensions, inky velvet blankness all around. Bloody glasses, put my glasses back on. I need to get some, what do they call them? What do they call glasses where you have two different lenses in
contact lenses, bifocals.
Bifocals, yeah, I need to get some bifocals. It seemed to be a room without dimensions, inky velvet blackness all around. The only source of light emanating from the life support capsule raised up on a single metal rod, a long coffin-like cylinder in which Callie lay like a corpse, securely strapped down at waist, wrists and ankles. She had been dressed in a featureless grey shift. Electrodes were attached to her head and upper trunk. Above her, suspended by a metal clamp, a graduated drip feed led to a long translucent tube that snaked down to disappear somewhere in the region of the patient's right elbow. Beyond the bright halo of light from the capsule's interior, glinted in the darkness, a panel of dials and switches, the only sound the low whining throb of the medical scanner as it monitored every physiological function. Callie's head was held rigidly in position so that she could only stare straight up into the pitch blackness. She was aware of movement, of murmuring voices. A face loomed over her, garish shadows thrown upwards, making a black slash of the mouth, the nostrils broad and flared, and a single slitted eye glazing down. The eye regarded her as it might a specimen in a test tube, then looked away into the outer darkness. Oh, yeah. Nice work, Trevor Hoyle. You know, it's not like award-winning Booker Prize stuff, but it's effective, it's workmanlike, it just builds things out. It's really, really nice. And there's a line that Travis gets when they find Callie in the blown-up room. And they say, is she alive? And the guy says, yes, she was lucky. And Travis says, no, we were lucky. Her luck ran out when she lived.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant.
Bleak.
Yeah, it's great. The other funny thing about it as well is, in the show, when they find out Callie is alive, they do a 180 and go straight back to the same planet and factory in the Midlands or wherever it is. But in the novel, Hoyle can, in a couple of paragraphs, give some detail about the intelligence base she's been transferred to on Centauro. Again, given a little bit more scale, not for a huge amount of effort. So again, lean, effective, efficient, at just making the world or universe of Blake 7 just feel that little bit bigger. Yeah, good stuff. So that's the book covering the first episode in, well, let's have a look, 50-odd pages maybe. Now, for some reason, this novelisation skips the episode Mission to Destiny, which is actually quite a decent whodunit on a ship full of... They discover a ship full of unconscious people and one dead body, but it doesn't advance the arc with Servalan and co, so it doesn't feature in this novelisation. But Avon gets to do a Poirot-Columbo bit, which is fantastic, where he's standing in the room with all the survivors saying, one of you is a murderer, and he's figuring it all out. It's great. It's absolutely brilliant. Well worth a watch. If
I
you
must
didn't
watch that.
it,
I skipped that one, so I'll go back and watch that one.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So we move on to the episode, the book moves on, I should say, to covering the episode Duel. And, you know, it does feel like when you're reading the book, it's like, oh, well, it's like a sudden shift to a new world. But it works well enough because, of course, Travis is there shortly afterwards. So it feels like a continuation. Travis is chasing them down. He's back. He's tracked the Liberator to the orbit of some planet of death and a couple of space witches. We'll come to that. And the Liberator needs 48 hours to recharge its energy banks. And, again, there's a really lovely bit of Trevor Hoyle here. It says, a thin wind moaned like a funeral dirge over the barren wastes of the planet's surface. The landscape was bleak, clothed in yellowish light, no sign of any living or growing thing across the endless miles of desolation. Great and mighty civilizations had once flourished here, a race of humanoid creatures with advanced technological powers, overcome by their own immense arrogance and their unwillingness to bow before the unfathomable secrets of the cosmos. And now, millennia after the ultimate reckoning, the husk of this world remained like a lost and barren graveyard. Its cities destroyed, its people gone, a perpetual reminder of the dark demon seed that, unchecked, can flourish and rise and strangle even the most scientifically accomplished species. This was the planet Amasat, memorial to the dead. Oh, yeah, good stuff. Again, nice and evocative. Upshot though, Travis has tracked them here. They're in a bit of trouble because they need to recharge the batteries. And they have a scrap, but the space witches intervene and make Blake and Travis fight one-on-one. Well, actually not one-on-one, two-on-two, because Blake gets to have Jenna with him and Travis gets to have a mutoid with him. But at its core, this is the Star Trek original series episode Arena, where Kirk is forced to fight the Gorn because they're having a space battle in the atmosphere above a planet, and some ancient cosmic power transports them to the surface and makes them fight in that place in California where all these things are always filmed. Whereas here, they get transported from a studio set of this city of this planet of the dead to a bit of forest somewhere near Elstree to have a scrap. So the main difference is the space witches, who are worth watching. They're the last of the civilization. The planet being a devastated wasteland of gravestones is a really good image. One which is a cackling old crone who digs the prospect of violence. The other is a young, hot, posh bird with a very tight and sheer dress, and it's very cold on that planet, as you can see from the Blu-ray. And unlike Trek and very Blake 7, it's much more dialogue than action-heavy, and Travis is a much more entertaining antagonist than the Gorn. I'm not entirely convinced this is a great part of the story. It is a bit weird. It reads a little bit more clunkily than I think the show proceeds.
I don't understand what they're trying to do here, in that they're trying to teach him a lesson.
Yeah.
And that's why Jenna goes down there. And that's why Travis goes down with the android.
Yeah.
But he doesn't care about the android, whereas Blake cares about Jenna. So the idea is whoever wins, their person accompanying them will be put to death, I guess. But why on earth would... Travis isn't going to bother. If he kills Blake, and then they say, right, because of that, we're going to kill your android, he's like, yeah, fair enough, I'll do it myself.
Yeah. Which effectively he does at the end, doesn't he? He says, you know what, this is a terrible failure, you'll probably be retired from service. And you know what that means for you, don't you, as a mutoid? It means death. Unlucky.
The idea that he's going to care for this and learn, no, when you kill a part of humanity and you're going to recognise the suffering that you cause. So what? It's just true. Alan Partridge shrugging. Yeah,
it's absolutely true. I think this is definitely Terry Nation thinking, right, I'm so far through writing this series, I'm running out of ideas now. Right, yeah, Arena. I'll just do a riff on Arena. And because it works in Arena because the Gorn looks like a terrifying space lizard, but it's inscrutable because of that. So you don't really know what's going on in its head. But you do find out a little bit towards the end that actually the Gorn looks like a terrifying space lizard, but it's intelligent and actually it can be reasoned with, as Kirk finds through this entire process. Whereas in this, Travis is the Gorn and Travis is just a bastard. So what's the point? But there's a season 2 episode of Space 1999, famously and terribly called The Rules of Luton, because producer Fred Freeberger, who was the guy who oversaw the worst series of Star Trek, the original series, season 3, he took over season 2 of Space 1999, and he was on his way from the airport to the studios, and he saw a sign for Luton, and he thought, oh, that sounds really futuristic.
Yeah.
So he insisted that the episode be renamed The Rules of Luton. Now, that could be some kind of, legend, but I've got the Space 1999 episode guide, which is really, really fascinating, and it repeats that in there, so I'm taking it as absolute fact that Fred Freeberger thought Luton sounded futuristic. But that Space 1999 episode is properly bab, frankly. It's terrible. This one isn't great, to be fair, but it is better than The Rules of Luton, but it's cheap, and most of it takes place in that scrap of woodland. Another example of how the Blu-ray shines, though, because, again, it's all filmed on 16mm, all that stuff. It's very nice. But talking of Travis and his attitude to all of this and his attitude to his mutoid. So mutoid in the series, android in the book. Hoyle maybe didn't like the term mutoid for some reason, so he rephrased it as android, although pretty much in the book it's exactly the same. They still have to use blood plasma to power themselves up. There are still humans that have been modified. There's an amazing moment where Travis is with his mutoid co-pilot on the planet, and they have no memory of their pre-surgery lives. And he tries to goad her about her old life, but she's just not buying into it. And he just ends up looking disappointed, then sort of mildly disgusted when he can't get a rise out of her.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant. He's such a dickhead. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But yeah, most of this episode, unlike Arena, where Kirk is fighting the Gorn for a good 20 minutes of it, I think the actual fighting in this takes about 30 seconds right at the end of the episode.
The fighting is terrible. There's no choreography at all, is there? They've got they've sharpened sticks and the little trap set as well, but it looks like they've spent no time whatsoever trying to make it look convincing, and it is weak. Yeah.
It's pretty bad, and I think it's a pattern that has developed as the series has gone on, because if you think back to the second episode when we were talking about it, there's that fight that Avon has, a hand-to-hand fight with a crew member in the computer control centre, aboard the prison transport, and there's ear claps and dirty fighting, and it's absolutely fantastic. And you know that stunt guy choreographed that with Paul Darrow, and they shot it properly and they edited it properly, and it's great. But in this, by now, it's just flimsy neck chops and bad editing, and people fall over and are unconscious. It's really not very good.
And that trap, the trap they set for Blake that drops out of the tree, where the mutoid has to cut it with a knife, but she's slow doing it. that wouldn't trap a field mouse. He's supposed to trap Blake there underneath a few planks of wood. Just terrible.
Yeah, I mean, in the book, it's like punji stakes, isn't it? They're building it with spikes and stuff, so it's more like a Viet Cong punji stake trap. I mean, the book is a little bit better. There's also a nice bit in the book where, because in the book, Blake has had his arm bitten by some weird forest creature, so his arm's already weakened. Jenna has this weird nightmare, and she wakes up and something's sucking on Blake's arm, and he has to get rid of it. But so as a result, he's at a slight disadvantage, and Travis is getting the best of him. But there's this great bit where he's just like, it just becomes so pissed off that Travis is going to kill him. He just starts wailing on him and basically beats Travis up with his fists. Just boom, 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 just pounds him with his fists and comes out on top. Meanwhile, Travis's mutoid pilot still needs human blood plasma, so she's menacing Jenna with a big fuck-off needle that's fitted into a gauntlet for just such an occasion, which adds a nice little sort of horror dimension to it. So it's better in the book.
That's good.
Yeah, it's better in the book. But, it has its moments. But, the sheer pace of the fighting is pretty bad. And they want to gloss over it. Whenever there's any kind of physical confrontation needs to take place, it's neck chop, bad lazy edit, someone's unconscious. Yeah, it's not very good. While all this is going on, though, we do have to point out we get some class early Avon cold delivery. But it's a bit weird at this point, because when you know how the series develops and you know what Avon becomes in terms of basically the show's central protagonist, anti-hero, because Avon's always going to be a bastard, they really seem to be trying to position him at this stage in the series as the Spock character. Cold. If you take Spock but make him coldly logical, emotionally detached, but also sarcastic prick, that's where Avon is being positioned. And it's amazing, and Paul Darrow is absolutely brilliant, but I'm glad that he gets to break out of that as time goes by. Yeah,
there are bits there where you think, are they deliberately drawing a parallel between Blake, Avon and Travis?
Yeah.
Where both of them are described as having more affinity with machines than human beings. And I think that's probably deliberate. And Villa will make jokes about him, saying, the only people he understands are computers. And, they challenge him that he doesn't care when Cal is returned.
Yeah.
And he's very cold there, but he does show a human side. But he says, look, I just don't show it. It doesn't mean I don't feel it, essentially, paraphrasing.
There's a great bit of Villa-Avon interplay in the book, which is largely similar to the series, but I think in the series, there's a little bit of GAN injected into it that I don't think was in the TV show. So there's a bit where Villa like mocks him for being more like a machine, and GAN has been counting on something, and Avon says to GAN something along the lines of, if you keep on counting on those fingers, you might eventually get to 10. And GAN says it'd be much more entertaining to knock all of your teeth out.
I think that's the problem with Gan. That in the series, he's too nice. I think he'd be better as more of a barbarian type. I don't really understand his character in the series at all.
No, and I think that's why they probably write him out in season 2.
Yeah, I don't really see the point of him, to be honest.
Gan was in this situation. No, well, it was in this situation at the beginning where he could be big and strong and powerful and intimidating and dangerous. And in the third episode with Brian Blessed, he is throwing bad guys around. And basically, it looks like he's killing them. But then they introduce the aggression limiter, and it turns him into a pointless character.
I just don't get it at all.
No,
I'd rather him there just a killing machine that they can turn on and turn off. Say, and just send him out to do some brute work. But it just doesn't work. He seems too like a gentle giant, and I think I don't really understand that character at all.
I think a gentle giant works if they can have those explosions of violence that they then feel regret for, or something like that, and maybe have PTSD because of doing terrible things. That's all fine, but I think they really do kneecap the character with this aggression limiter, and they write themselves into a corner with him that just ends up having them write him out because they can't do anything interesting with him. But it's a shame. But anyway, this portion of the story, this episode, at the end, Blake has wailed on Travis and beaten the crap out of him. And then he's about to kill Travis, but he refuses. And he justifies it by basically saying that if Travis is alive, it'll always be him chasing the Liberator. And basically he's an idiot. And he's confident that he can always beat him, which I think is...
I like that bit,
Yeah, it's amazing.
Blake comes out of it really well. He shows his compassion, but also it's shrewd tactically to think, well, I could beat him anytime. If he's following us, we haven't got a problem.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Travis does have that one last chance to be a cunt, though, when he blames his mutoid for his own failure and tells her she'll be retired and probably executed when they get back. What a prick.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. It's amazing. And actually, the next time we see him with a mutoid, it's not her. We'll get to that, though.
She's gone,
Yeah, she's gone. And we move on to...
I will just mention, though, she's I've forgotten her name now, but she is a beautiful mutoid.
Yeah, she's great.
I think I've forgotten her name now, but she may still be acting, and there is still a little bit of humanity in her character. There's a reflection. She isn't a robot. There's something in between. She's embarrassed and shy about having to drink the blood.
Yeah, there's I think the actor really manages to add sort of a sense of tired resignedness to what she is, which I think works really, really well. Even to the point where when he says, you'll be retired from service, which basically means you'll be killed, she just still has that same tired look on her face. Yeah. It's good.
And then just accepts it as you'd expect an android to do. Yeah, fine, that is what will happen. But you can tell underneath there's a regret there.
Yeah.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, straight away, in the next episode, we find very soon that he's got a replacement mutoid, and it's Glynnis Barber.
Glynnis Barber.
Yeah, Glynnis Barber. Unbelievable. So, Project Avalon, name of the novel, also the name of the middle episode. So Travis is meeting an informer on an ice planet to get information. Sorry, or is it Blake? I can't remember. They're going to an ice planet to get information about Avalon, the mysterious Avalon. And making good on his threat at the end of the last episode, he's got a new mutoid pilot, which is Glynnis Barber. So Glynnis Barber, at this point, she's about 22, and this is the year she started making TV appearances. So it's very, very early in her career at this point. Now, to kids of our generation, I think people listening to this, some younger people or people in the USA or elsewhere in the world, will say Glynnis Barber, who's Glynnis Barber? But why does Glynnis Barber resonate with people of our generation in the UK?
Well, it's Dempsey and Makepeace.
So she was blonde, beautiful. She was in a series called Jane in the 80s, based upon a comic strip.
I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, so if you think about how they went on to do things like Sky Captain of the World of Tomorrow, Jane was like a very, very early example of trying to do a comic strips type visual presentation using blue screen and then animated like cartoon strips and stuff behind her. But she spent most of her time in Jane in lingerie. That's my main memory of it. And my God, she was beautiful. But yeah, she was in a cop show called Dempsey and Makepeace with an American actor called Michael Brandon. And I think there were 3 seasons of that. And, rather improbably, she played an aristocrat stroke police detective sergeant. It was the daughter of a lot. She was like Lady Barbara Makepeace or something, who also happened to be a police sergeant. It was a little bit silly, but it was a really, really super successful TV show. And I was looking her up earlier. Apparently she was in shitloads of soaps after that as well. She's been in EastEnders and Hollyoaks and all sorts of other things.
Yeah, she was pretty much a household name. I'd completely forgotten about Jane.
Most relevantly to Blake 7, though, she joins the crew of not the Liberator in season 4. She becomes a series regular in season 4 as Sue Lynn. So yeah, she actually becomes a Blake 7 regular, which according to the internet, that was her breakthrough role. Pre-Dempsey and Makepeace. But anyway, Avalon, resistance leader, Blake and co there to find her for some reason or another. I can't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't really get what they're trying to do. I kept looking back and thinking, why are they here? Yeah. And you I'll just go with it. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They've gone to get Avalon.
What we have to kind of believe and buy into is because Blake's an idealist and he wants to fight against the Federation, he's looking for other idealists and he's always seeking them out, much to Avon's disgust.
Yeah.
But as it happens, Travis doesn't just have Glynnis Barber with him. He's got a whole gang of mutoids and they're ruthless, dispassionate moiderers. And Avalon's gang, including an informer who's led Travis to them, soon found that out, and the informer gets brutally murdered as well. So Travis grabs Avalon before Blake and co can get there. And it's some nice location filming, again, on film. It looks nice. I was watching it, I was thinking, that's got to be Wookiee Hole. Because whenever you got anything filmed in caves on British TV in the 70s, it was always Wookiee Hole. So I looked it up. Yeah, Wookiee Hole. Same place. Good, Revenge of the Cybermen was filmed with Tom Baker. Same director too, Michael Bryant. Yeah, factoid. But there's quite a lot going on in this one. Travis is one step ahead laying a trap again. This time it hinges on this resistance leader, Avalon, because he wants to gain her knowledge of the 30 planets in the sector that are rebelling against the tyranny of the Federation, but he's also using her as a trap because he wants Blake. But much to his disgust, the Federation wants the Liberator, so it kind of stymies him a little bit because if he could just blow up the Liberator with interceptors, happy days, but the Federation now recognises how powerful the Liberator is and they want the Liberator as well. Another observation, again, in this first series about how Avon fits in, it's the same in this episode again. He mostly just sits around on the sofa, because as we commented on before, the Bridge of the Liberator set is great, and they've got a real nice little sort of round-the-corner sofa set up in front of all the control stations. And he acts as the Liberator's sarcastic intel-struck science guy, and not much else, apart from just being an arse to everybody. But there's a great bit where he just suggests pissing off and leaving Blake behind, which he does whenever trouble occurs. But, he suggests it again, and it's great, obviously. I mean, and he'll have a brilliant arc. But also, Villa isn't getting too much action either so far. He's not really, even in the book, he pops up occasionally to make a quip and then just fades back into the background again.
There's that goofy bit, isn't there, in the first episode, where he goes up and says, "Oh, I'm an electrician. I've come," and you've got those Federation guards that he dupes just by being daft. And I don't really like that scene. The Federation guards come across as worse than stormtroopers. That surely they just shoot. We don't know who you are. Have you got an ID? No, and then shoot him. But it's a little bit goofy, a little bit slapstick, and it's probably the weakest part of those episodes that I watched.
Yeah, it makes them look like morons. And the sad thing is, in terms of Villa having dialogue, that's probably his heftiest dialogue scene in the entire second half of the first season.
Yeah.
He really doesn't get much to do, which it's odd rewatching them now, knowing how, post-Blake, that Avon-Villa dynamic becomes a much more prevalent part of the mix.
Yeah.
Because as Avon takes on the proper anti-hero central position on the cast, Villa is his conscience most of the time.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah,
is his foil. So there's better stuff to come, but at the moment it's all kind of settling. It's all working itself out. But it won't be until Blake exits the series, I don't think, that things really, really take off in terms of their relationships. And that's one weird thing about season 3 when you get Del Tarrant in it and Blake's gone. You get all the best Avon stuff and you get great Avon Villa stuff, but the stories, I think. If Gareth Thomas said that he didn't like the way it was going because it was moving away from idealists versus space fascists, then I can kind of understand it to a degree, and I think it probably moves even further away. But what it then becomes is Avon versus everybody else, which I think that's a nice and suitable replacement for me. I think it's great. But there is a funny bit where Blake says to Villa, teleport down to the planet to join me and Jenna. And then Avon, after insulting Villa, teleports him down. And it's really weird because Avon and Callie turn to each other. And Avon, occasionally, when he grins, he has this big toothy grin. And Avon and Callie turn to each other and give each other massive beaming grins. It's like, Gan, you don't know where he is. He's somewhere else on the Liberator, I don't know, masturbating, whatever the fuck he's doing. But Avon and Callie give these big beaming grins, and you never really find out what's behind these big beaming grins, other than to think, are they like, right, Villa's gone now, let's fuck? What is what is going on? What is going on with it?
Gan's got a limiter that stops him masturbating. That's another feature that they don't mention in the novel.
Oh, poor Gan.
That's why he gets so angry every now and again.
Yeah, I mean, I generally think Gan is pretty rubbish, to be honest. But if he has a masturbation limiter, maybe I feel a bit more sorry for him.
The rage.
But, at the end of the day, while Avon and Callie are or maybe aren't fucking, Servalan is back again to fuck with Travis. And again, there are scenes between them that are absolutely magic in this. They're in this, base on this ice planet. And, the 80s mountain warehouse camping outfits now have fair-lined hoods, which is the one.
Beautiful. Really good quality things they're wearing there. I like those.
Jenna looks great in them. She looks great in everything, obviously, but frames Jenna's face very nicely. But Servalan's back, and the scenes between them are magic, particularly when they're getting off on torture and experimenting on people with rapid-action murder viruses. Oh, it's just wonderful. The book, much better on this, I think. Much better, because the virus test in the show is a bit low-key and lame, and it's not really much more than a still of a guy with fungal growth developing, like in almost like a stop frame series of images being layered over this still image.
It reminded me of that book. What was the book you did last year?
Oh, The Fungus.
Yeah, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, The Fungus. But Trev, of course, because he's got the opportunity to do it, Trev can add a little bit of something interesting to this. So they've got this guy. They've just chosen this bloke, this poor bloke, just randomly found a guy in captivity or wherever they've got him from. Maybe he wasn't even in captivity. Travis has just said to his mutoids or his scientists, "Oh, just get me someone." So they're just going to grab this poor fella, and it says, looking intently through the glass wall, Travis pressed a button on the panel, and they heard the subdued whine of servo-operated hydraulics. At first, nothing appeared to be happening, but then, with the slightest of movements, the clamp slowly tightened. Everybody watching with fascination as the file shattered under the vice-like pressure. Immediately, the light inside the room took on a bluish hue as if something had been released into the atmosphere. Glancing down for a fleeting moment, Travis activated a timing device on the panel, then snapped his attention back to the man in the room. The prisoner was glazing placidly into space, apparently unaffected by the contents of the file. Absently, he brushed the back of one hand as if shooing away a fly, and after a second or two repeated the gesture with growing irritation. It was only when he looked down that he realised with mounting horror what was happening to him. Something was growing on his hand. It was like a fungus, grey and cellular and sponge-like, and it was dividing and multiplying itself with astonishing, frightening speed. The man began to claw at it desperately, his face stricken with terror. But now it had enveloped both hands and was creeping rapidly up his arms, and as he twisted aside in wild-eyed panic, the watchers saw that the grey cellular fungus had attached itself to his neck and was devouring his face. Travis was hypnotised by the sight, tense with excitement, his gloved hands curled into fists. Servalan watched dispassionately, betraying no emotion whatsoever. The growth had now totally engulfed the upper part of the prisoner's body and more than half of his head. The process seemed to be speeding up by the second. Falling to his knees, the man opened his mouth in a scream of anguish, though not a sound escaped from the sealed, soundproof room. Within moments, the struggling mound of grey sponge had lost all resemblance to a human being, not a single feature visible, and after a few slight spasmodic twitches, lay completely still, a dead and lifeless mass of fungus. Gradually, the blue glow faded, and the room was once again bathed in clinical white light. Travis punched the button on the timing device. 43 seconds. Very impressive, Servalan said quietly. How long before it neutralises? It's clear now. Open the door. Travis's hand hovered hesitantly over the control, then decisively flipped up the switch. Moving to the door, Servalan waited for the hiss of compressed air to subside before opening the door and stepping inside. Travis followed, and together they stood looking down at the inert mass of dead fungus. There wasn't even any smell. Travis touched it with his foot, and the whole thing crumbled away, leaving a small pile of grey dust. Servalan's lips curled up in a little half-smile. Satisfied? Travis breathed out slowly, turning to meet her eyes. Completely. It's like there's a real spark between them there, isn't there? I think they both got slightly moist at that point. Yeah, they love it, the sods. Yeah. It's great stuff. Apart from that, this is all basically a standard rescue caper with a lot of gunplay, dead fascists, which is nice, help from a survivor from Avalon's gang, who in the book is called Dell, when they manage to rescue her. But we know it's a trap. this book is starting to pile on the pace now. Because given that the novelisation spent its first half on 2 episodes, it's really having to compress things now. And as we'll find, it's now covering 3 episodes in barely more than 90 pages. I think Trevor's still doing a great job. It's just a shame, because this story's got all this gunplay. And having been exposed to the super gory effects of the Liberator handguns in the first novelisation, I kind of wanted a little bit of that. But the action's really being skipped over, so you got all this gunfighting, and it's barely mentioned in the novelisation, which is a bit of a shame because it's all ploughing along at such a pace now. But we know it's a trap. Blake figures something's rotten. Turns out Travis equipped all of his guys with low-powered guns, so they were doomed. Another example of what a bastard Travis is, he says to one of his men, one of the Federation guards at one point, you've been issued the new blasters. And they're like, yes, sir. The new blasters means really, really low-powered, so they can't kill Blake or anyone, and they all get mercilessly butchered.
Yeah.
By Blake and Co.
Why are they introducing woke blasters? It's just bloody political correctness gone mad.
Yeah, so this is why Blake realises something's not right, because 2 of them actually got hit by the woke blasters, and all they got done was knocked over. You know. Yeah, no good. I mean, at the end of the day, they figure it out. Avalon is been replaced with an android who's got the poison file. They come up with a plan. Avon replaces the android's programming. They send it back with the file. And Travis shows this moment of... It shows what a fucking cool hand he is at this point. Because his android is stood there with instructions to drop the file at any hint of anything slightly suspicious or dodgy from the villains. And Travis is the one who takes it upon himself and leaps to grab it before it hits the floor, which is like, he's not a hero, but from their perspective, it's quite a gutsy balls of steel moment, which I think really, really works for Travis.
Yeah.
And makes him seem a much more serious handful of a character than the guy who Blake branded as an idiot who he can always beat. Yeah, even though he did beat him again. You know, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So next up, again, we skip a couple of episodes in the novelisation, but we did watch them. The next episode in sequence on DVD or Blu-ray is called Breakdown. Not a bad thing the novel skips it, to be honest, because it's a Gan's Got Headache episode.
Right.
And again, we've talked about Gan. I feel for the guy that played Gan. He starts off as a big threat to baddies, but they retcon him, and after that, he's just not very good. He's just a bit bab. So in this episode, something weird happens. He starts getting violent, yada, 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 but by the end, he's all right again, or something. But it has some great Avon development. There's a lovely bit where they're calculating flight time to find a neurosurgeon because Gan's headache has made him a rampaging psycho brute who's attacking everybody. So they've got him under sedation, they've got him trapped. And there's a bit where they calculate flight times to find a neurosurgeon, and they say, 600 hours, and Avon says, you don't have 600 hours, Blake. He says, you don't have 600 hours. Mm-hmm. Always keeping himself sort of aloof and apart from Blake and the rest of the crew, and is distancing himself more and more.
Yeah.
And is just seething with disapproval of all of them and contempt for them all. It's fabulous. It's great stuff from Paul Darrow. And at one point he says to Blake, he's had enough and wants off because, and he says, remaining a member of your crew requires a level of stupidity I am no longer capable of. It's just marvellous. And another reason the episode is worth watching is there's a Julian Glover role. Julian Glover, so he plays this neurosurgeon. It's 1 year before his turn as Scaroth of the Jaggeroth in City of Death in Doctor Who, and a couple of years before he's immortalised to all sci-fi fans as General Veers in The Empire Strikes Back. And of course, he would later go on to play many, many different things, but not least of which was the Maester of the Targaryens in Game of Thrones, of course.
Right.
Which are quite entertaining role in that. We actually almost met him at one of the sci-fi weekenders we go to every year, but yeah, it was. I mean, I can understand why if you're like your late 70s or early 80s and you got all these nerds coming to talk to you. He was insisting on positioning the more attractive ladies next to him. Which fair enough. I suppose if you're your 80s, fair enough. But as I wasn't an attractive babe, I thought, yeah, I've got no chance here, so I won't bother. But it's good stuff. We've got ethical dilemmas. We've got Avon having to make a choice. A lot of good character interplay, all culminating in a vicious murder, the subsequent death of lots and lots of neutral scientists and engineers, basically demonstrating that wherever the Liberator goes, death and destruction follow. It's good stuff. Gan's still rubbish, but there are some great moments in the episode that are well worth checking out. The next episode, it skipped Bounty, leapfrog by the novelisation. And Blake 7, while it's never rubbish, it definitely has weaker episodes, and this is one of them. Not a whole lot to comment on. In fact, on reflection, it might actually be a bit rubbish, so not a lot to say about that. But then we get on to the episode Deliverance in the book. This is the one that the book does in 9 pages.
Yeah.
and basically 2/3 of it is missing. 2/3 of it is entirely missing. What have we got going on here? Servalan is in it, so it's instantly better than any of the previous ones that it skipped. And do you remember last time we were talking, I got confused because we started watching an episode. I was like, this is the one with Roy from EastEnders in it, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
This is the one with Roy from EastEnders in it.
Yeah. That's it, because he comes on his that escape pod thing. And I was thinking, who's that? It looks. And I was thinking at first, is it George Baker, the actor who plays Inspector Wexford?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, So I was looking him up, and I thought, no, it's someone called Tony Caunter. I thought, who's that? I thought, it's Roy Evans from EastEnders.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. It's Roy Evans, the guy who marries Pat Butcher after Frank Butcher dies.
Yeah. What a terrible fate.
Yeah. So Roy from EastEnders, his ship has... This is only the first of 2 more EastEnders connections in this episode. I wonder if you spotted the other one.
No, I don't think so, no.
Well, we'll get to that.
This is exciting, yeah.
It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. Again, in our first Blake 7 episode, we talked a lot about EastEnders Blake 7 crossovers. We've got 2 in this episode. This one's a little bit more substantial. But Roy's ship has a problem, and him and his co-pilot have to eject and crash on a planet, and for reasons we don't initially understand, the Liberator crew goes after them. But this time, Avon's going. Avon's finally getting off the Liberator and he gets to go down to a planet, and of course he's a snide git while he's doing it because he's the best. But Servalan knows about this too for some reason, because she's following this with some interest. She doesn't know the Liberator's there, but she knows that this ship has crashed. So obviously Servalan has got something to do with this explosion on this ship that's caused it to crash. But long story short, it's a planet of cavemen, and there's a mysterious metal hatch in a hill. None of this is in the book, by the way.
No.
Yeah. They find Roy, but cavemen grab Jenna. Gan is still rubbish. Gan's hair is more rubbish still. And I think at this stage, we have to pick up on something about Blake 7 in general. Is it 70s British telly or Blake 7 in particular that holds some kind of record for most curly, frizzy hair in a sci-fi show? Because there's a lot. There is a lot of either curly or just dry and frizzy hair. And when we think about the hair front, Blake, dry and curly. Callie, dry and curly stroke frizzy, depending on which part of her hair you're looking at. Gan, dry and tight curly. Roy from EastEnders, dry and frizzy. So at least half of the characters we've seen so far in the past 4 episodes have curly hair or frizzy hair. Jenna, she's got glorious hair, but it was a wig, apparently.
Magnificent, yeah.
Yeah, it's magnificent. And I think she did say in an interview that at one point she just said, fuck, no more with a fucking wig, so they stopped giving her the wig. So this might be her natural hair by this point, but it's glorious. Avon, good sensible hair. Villa, good sensible hair. That said, both of them, you could maybe have an argue of having a slight look of not washing the hair too often, but maybe that's the secret. But there's a terrible imbalance. And I can't help but think, is it something about 70s shampoo? Because you just don't see hair like that anymore. It's a real fucking 50 years back thing. No. And, you know, not knocking anybody who's got curly hair. Curly hair can be glorious. But this 70s Blake 7 hair is dry and unhealthy looking. Is it because they're all using Verzine? Do you remember Verzine?
Yeah. There probably isn't the choice available back in the 70s. There'd be Head and Shoulders, Verzine, some sort of industrial strength stuff.
Is it because everybody had hard water? That's probably it.
Yeah.
Verzine, hard water. You know, I mean, even thinking back to when I was a kid, I'm thinking about soap. My main memories of soap were... Shampoo was Verzine, right?
Yeah.
That was it. Shampoo was Verzine. Soap was coal tar soap until Imperial Leather came out. And the adverts on telly made it look exotic and posh. So, and then it was Shield because it had that patterning through it that made it look real
Stripes,
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe it was Verzine and Hardwater, but obviously it was terrible times for hair in the 70s. Yeah, incredible. Anyway, Roy's mate is this Federation doctor. So they go down to the planet and they find the escape pods. He's dead, but Roy is badly injured. But they get him back to the Liberator, and he tells Blake he was going to try and sell something called Aurak, an invention of his father's, in return for life-saving batteries for his dad's heart. Then he gets shot and tries to hijack the ship. None of this happens in the book. They find them in the escape pods. Roy from EastEnders tells them about Aurak, and then he dies. And that's it. End of chapter. All done and dusted, 9 pages, wash your hands, done, move on to the next part of it. In the series, lots more going on. Roy from EastEnders tries to hijack the ship. But it turns out all this was an elaborate ploy by Servalan to get this Aurak thing on the QT without Federation approval. Aurak being an advanced wonder of technology that they will pay 100 million credits for. But apparently it's worth 10 times that. But it's quite nice because Servalan has cooked all of this up because she's not got the authority to use 100 million credits of Federation money.
Yeah.
So she's basically freelancing. she's out on her own. And as a result, Travis, who got sacked from the Federation Space Corps last time around, she's still got him kicking around. So she's got the disgraced Travis to put to work on it too, which is just wonderful. It's fantastic. Oh, I'll miss Stephen Grief as Travis. Really. But here comes your next EastEnders connection. So Jenna, because she is trying to be self-sufficient and a powerful woman, she manages to escape the cavemen by cutting her bonds and knocking one of them out with a big rock. There's that brilliant bit where she's in this animal hide tent and she's sitting there all bound, and there's this caveman sat looking at it going, while he just knocks 2 rocks together. He's going, knocking 2 rocks together. But she managed to cut her bonds, whack him over the head with another rock, and escape. But she only gets just outside of the tent and just gets caught straight away again by another caveman. But that caveman is played by Big Ron Tarr. You're looking at me blankly now. Yeah, Big Ron. No, do you remember in EastEnders? Mind the Stall, Ron.
Vaguely. There are great decades when I haven't watched it, so it could be a character I'm not aware of.
Now Ron, Big Ron, his character name in EastEnders was Big Ron. And he was in it for like 15 years.
Oh, I probably know him then. Yeah, I'll have to look him up. Yeah,
big, tall, bulky bloke. Never got a line, but he was always on the market. He was like an extra on the market. He was always in the Queen Vic. And Pete Beale, if Pete Beale had to do something storyline related and leave his stall, he'd go, "Man the stall, Ron." And it'd cut to Ron, and Ron would wave and nod.
I know when I look at him, I think I know exactly what I mean, because I watched EastEnders from 1985, probably for 5 or 10 years, and then I stopped. So but you still know who's in it. I know Barbara Winds is in it, and I know. So I still know some of the characters. But if he's in it for 15 years, I'm fairly sure.
As soon as you see him without a caveman wig, you'll know who he is straight away. and actually, Big Ron got around quite a lot as well as being a fixture in EastEnders for years. He was in Star Wars as one of Jabba's goons. Although only in the Star Wars Special Edition when they had that horrific CGI Jabba talking to Han Solo. And I looked that up. His name was Ron Burnlew. He had a scrap with James Bond, Roger Moore James Bond, in View to a Kill in a warehouse. He was in Willow. He was in numerous comic strip presents episodes, usually just playing a character called Ron. He was in Eat the Rich. He was in Five Go Mad on Mescaline, various other things. Do you remember?
I watched all those. Yeah.
Do you remember a Five Go Mad in whatever episode where there's two like heavies walking around going mumble 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 atom bomb? He's one of them two.
No, but I will have definitely watched that.
Yeah, and kind of wonderfully, because he had this role in EastEnders for such a long time under his own name, Big Ron, and main characters regularly say, "Mind the stall, Ron." When he died, they had loads of filming in the can. So even after he died in 1998, he continued to appear on EastEnders well after his death until they'd exhausted.
Oh, that's nice. What a tribute. Yeah.
They'd exhausted all of his footage. And then, when they had no more footage for him, they had a line of dialogue from one of the characters explaining his absence, with that character saying he won the lottery and moved to Spain.
Oh, good. Yeah.
You did win the lottery. You did win the lottery, Big Ron. The lottery of our hearts.
Yeah.
Bless you, Big Ron Tarr. So yeah, I think it's just about the only time you see him, apart from when he's in the background running around trying to chase him. But anyway, Avon and co get chased by some of these cavemen. They find a hot babe behind the mysterious metal door, and she's got the hots for Avon. Cramming this episode with loads of ideas, and it's a real shame they're not in the novel.
Yeah.
Because I really like the behind the metal door thing. It's an ancient, she's one of the last surviving members of an advanced race who all have like a spaceship in a space rocket silo, and there's an ancient command centre. The savages outside are the radiation-ravaged survivors of an ancient war. It's all a very standard 70s sci-fi setup in some ways, but sort of irresistible. I always like that stuff. I always like that 70s, what's the world going to be like after a radioactive war? Or, neutron bombs, whatever it was at the time. It's just one of those. It's a bit random and a bit out of left field, but you've got this lovely setup. She thinks Avon is some kind of lord who's like destined to save them. And he does. He digs being this people's weird Jesus figure because he gets all the technology going. He reactivates the command centre. They'll launch the spaceship. And it's kind of cool. I love it. And there's this wonderful moment after he's fulfilled his role as the saviour of the Silo people, when she says that they'd waited generations for him to come. And he says that waiting for all that time for him, he says, it seems like a poor reward somehow.
Beautiful line.
Oh, it's fabulous. That little bit of self-deprecation.
But I was watching that episode and thinking, where's all this? But I'd read the book. I don't remember this. Where did these cavemen come from? Where's this bit about Avon being the Messiah? It's just not there.
Yeah, it's just at this point, Trevor's like, "Oh shit, I'm running out of time and page count. I've got to get crack. Right, just fucking cut it all out. Just skip it."
But there is a really good bit that they do miss out, and I think it's important, where they talk about the other man on the capsule with Roy from EastEnders is with a bloke called Marriott.
Yes,
and Marriott, when they're planning this thing, I think it's before then, when they say, this is what we're going to have to do to get Aurak. We're going to have to betray these people who think they're going to sell it. We'll just take it off them. And they say there's got to be no survivors. And then Travis says, but hang on, what about Marriott is one of the people who operated on him. He was the medical guy who saved his life.
Yes, of course.
Repaired him.
Yeah.
And that's the side where you stop thinking that Travis is a complete psychopath. He's got, again, to go back, he's got that humanity where he thinks, but I like this bloke. He helped me. Yeah. And then Servalan says, no survivors. And he says, oh, all right, fair enough then.
Yeah.
But he has to be talked into it because he wants to save Marriott.
Yeah, just for that split second, there's a moment of regret.
Yeah, there's something there, though, that you don't normally see. And you certainly don't see it in the first couple of episodes where you just think he really is a butcher and he will just kill anyone.
No, you're right. That is good. And it's all entirely missing from the book.
Yeah, I like that bit. And I had to look for it. And I was looking for it yesterday, thinking, where is that? And I couldn't find it in the book. I read through the book, and I thought, it's not there. And I had to go back and thought, which episode is this in? And I found it. I thought, there it is. Yeah. Why is that bit left out?
Even the last bit of the book, where at least he's got 30 pages to cover the last episode, there is still some stuff that's kind of skipped over, because there's a whole subplot about, because they spent so much time on the planet, they all get radiation sickness. And another one of the reasons they need to go and find the inventor of Aurak and find out what Aurak is, they need radiation drugs from him as well to treat the Liberator crew, which is why only Blake and Callie go down to the planet.
Yeah, and again, that's
all missing.
That's the sequence I thought, I don't remember this. And it's not there. And you see Gan wandering around and they're all sick and Avon's sick and they're all clearly ill. And you can understand why they left that bit out. But again, there's a whole chunk of episodes there that isn't included in the book.
Yeah. Although there is a moment where, I mean, we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but there's a moment where they get to, I forget the name of the scientist, they get to his place and they say, oh, yeah, but we also need radiation drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like, they're in the cupboard. Go in there, there's loads of them.
Yeah. He's Enzo.
Just go in the kitchen cabinet.
Yeah. Enzo's his name, and his son's Enzo, but I think it's better to call him Roy Evans, and then we can separate the two, because I think they're both called Enzo because he's his son and known by his surname. So
he'll always be Roy from EastEnders to me, right? Yeah. Before we get onto this final bit, I'm just I need to crack another 8.4% Saturday afternoon beer. This is going to catch up with me. This will catch up with me, but this one's quite an apt one because it's called Can't Catch Me. And Travis is always after Blake. Never quite catches him.
Good one,
I've got Can't Catch Me, gingerbread stout, Rich, velvety and sweet, 8.4%. Prepare for a holiday heist with this dark, sweet and velvety stout, rich flavours of malt and cocoa dance in the shadows while mellow ginger weaves in and out of every sip. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but, ginger stout, we'll find out. So, yeah, I mean, the upshot of all this is they're in a race with Travis and Servalan to get to this Aurak thing, find out why it's worth so much money. They have more incentive. If there's a crew that went to the planet, now I'll have radiation sickness and there's no suitable treatment about the Liberator, although none of that features in the book. I think we have to talk about contrast again here, because you've got the two pairings. You've got Blake and Callie in a race with Travis and Servalan. And I think we've talked about this briefly already, but we know that Servalan and Travis are evil fucks. But when you look at them on the surface of it, they are 10 billion times suaver, swisher, and cooler than Blake and Callie. Neither have got shitty Vosine hair or bad 80s Mountain Warehouse smocks. You know what? They're just... Every time it cut back to Blake and Callie, I just instantly wanted to go back to Travis and Servalan. Going through those underground tunnels, Servalan in her wonderful white, pure gleaming white suit, and Travis in his black. Oh, it's just... They're just fucking brilliant. The actors are great. They look amazing. And you compare that to Blake and Callie, whereas Blake is such a bossy twat in this episode, and it actually comes to be a problem in this episode, where Blake actually ends up coming across as quite flawed, I think. Because he's got the micro batteries for the scientist's mechanical heart, fine. So they've got this unfair advantage when they actually talk to the scientist, fine. They get there first because this floating, flying thing comes to talk to them, and they tell him who it is. And this is Aurak is controlling this thing. Because we've already found, of course, that Aurak, this is an important point, Aurak took control of the Liberator while it was in orbit. So Aurak is obviously super powerful because Zen had no power to resist him whatsoever. Zen, the ship's computer, just got completely overridden by Aurak from the planet. So Aurak, obviously super powerful. In the book, again, it all kind of rattles to a crunch. We've got tunnel chases, we've got monsters. Servalan and Travis never do quite catch up with them and the scientist. But while Blake is being a bossy twat, it's really weird and illogical. They've got this silly map where they say, right, this is our way out of the tunnels. Travis and Servalan are here.
My God.
I know. It's a funny map, isn't it?
Yeah. Sea, land, tunnel. You think, oh, this is elaborate.
Yeah, it's amazing.
This is a super brain scientist.
Yeah.
It's written in a Sharpie.
So this old scientist's going, oh, I've only got about 30 minutes to an hour left before my battery runs out in my mechanical heart, and we can't replace it here. Because they say, well, Zen could tell us how to replace it. He could talk us through it. But they've got Aurak there. So why? Why? But anyway, all of that becomes a moot point because Travis and Servalan turn up and blow the door in. So, okay, fair enough. They can't do it there and Aurak can't talk them through it. But they get Aurak. Aurak is basically a big Perspex box with loads of wires and flashing lights in it. And they think, right, put him in a case. We've got to get out of here. We've got to get back to the surface, outside of this shield, so we can transport back to the Liberator, so we can replace your heart battery. And then Blake says, right, you go on. I'm going to wait here and try and collapse this tunnel roof. And Callie says something along the lines of, we really should get him to the ship as soon as possible. And Blake says, just do as I say. So she goes off, and while they're waiting for Blake, this poor fucking scientist just dies. leaning against a wall. Blake finally turns up, and they're like, come on, oh, he's dead. It's like, fuck you, Blake, you smart ass.
But that's Servalan's plan all along. Because she knows, we'll delay that ship getting there, and then it'll be dead anyway. Yeah. So it just falls right into her hands.
It does. I mean, at this point, I'm fed up of Blake by this point. It's like, I'm fed up of your curly hair. I'm fed up of your massive, stupid moon boots that you're always wearing. I'm fed up of your green Mountain Warehouse camping smock. But the great thing about it is you know what he's going to get in the end. You know he deserves it. You know he's got it coming. And it'll be ace when it finally happens. Oh, yeah. But even then, Travis gets one last chance to do him in at the 11th hour.
Yeah.
But Avon turns up and blows his hand off to save the day. Which, again, when we just said that Blake's got it coming, and when it comes, it'll be sweet. But the final episode of season 1 has got Avon turning up to save Blake. Oh, nice bit of circularity to all of this again. So he gets his hand blown off. Again, he's getting chastised by Servalan. But there's another great bit of Stephen Grief action. Just a little bit of subtlety to his acting performance. When she says, "This is it, Travis. You've fucked up for the last time." She turns out and storms off down the beach looking fabulous. And he stands there and he just has this... It's almost a wry smile. Almost sort of a wry look of acknowledgement. He almost casts his eyes up to the skies like, doesn't quite do any of them, but it seems like he's on the verge of doing all three of these things at the same point. It's wonderfully subtle bit of really understated acting from Stephen Grief. It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. So I suppose they've got Aurak now. They're back on board the Liberator.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Aurak for a second. I think they changed things slightly between this and season 2. Obviously, there's a different voice actor.
That's it. I haven't watched it for a long time, and I thought, I'm sure that isn't the voice I recognise.
Yeah, I think Peter Tuddenham, who's the voice of Zen, I think he also voices Aurak. I could be wrong about that, but it's definitely a different...
That's it.
It's a different voice. The big perspex box full of flashing lights and tubes. I'm sure it gets a bit smaller, so it's easier to carry around, because that thing they're carrying around is fucking massive, and it looks like a real
it's
chunk.
like a fish tank, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that gets a little bit smaller, so they redesign it. But Aurak is totally up his own arse. He's a smart ass, and he demonstrates his power by making a prediction based upon calculations. And it comes up on screen, and it's the Liberator that blows up. Chilling cliffhanger. And there's the auguries of disaster, and they all look at the screen, and they all have looks of shock on their face. And that's it. Credits roll. And that's exactly how the book ends. The book ends on that image. So, I mean, if you're reading these Blake 7 novelisations back at the time, it's like, what? What? Is that how this fucking book ends? It's great stuff. And, of course, knowing what we know that vision of the Liberator exploding happens. Happens at the end of season 3, doesn't it? Yeah. The follow-through on the prediction of disaster. Great stuff. Great stuff. So all I can say is, season 2 better come out on Blu-ray. That's all I can say. But thoughts on Project Avalon by Trevor Hoyle?
I enjoyed reading it from start to finish. It worked better for me, in a way, in that the first one I read, the second half felt like an anticlimax. And that's not because it was badly written or raced to the end. But it was just that the beginning of it was so strong, and I just wanted more of that. I could have done with that extended into a whole novel. And the second part is good, but you're never going to match the first one. Whereas this one, you've got so much packed into it. And I was surprised when you said it was 5 episodes, and I watched all those 5 episodes, and I thought, barring 1 or 2 shortcuts, they've crammed it all in, and that's why you read from page to page and think, this is just flows really nicely. The characters come to life so well. Yeah. And that's really the writing in the script, that you know exactly who Avon is or Travis is, Blake. All these characters are so well drawn, and he captures it really well in the book, I think.
I like Trevor Hoyle's writing. I think he does a really, really good job. And the great thing about reading Project Avalon, if you read Project Avalon and you've never seen the series, it works.
That's what I was wondering about. And I mentioned that when we read through the first one. I thought, what would anyone get out of this if they hadn't seen Blake 7? And that's a question I can't answer. Yeah. Because when I know Avon's in there, I know Avon is. Yeah. And so when I hear his lines, I can hear those lines being read by Paul Darrow. Now, what anyone would get out of it who hadn't read or seen those episodes, I don't know. But it's well written, and it skips along. And the story's clear. I don't think you'd struggle. It doesn't take shortcuts where you think, this makes no sense. And there's some good ideas in there as well.
I think if you're an American reader, for example, in the late 70s or even the early 80s, and you've been reading E.C. Tubb Doomer-esque novels and all these type of things, I think if this dropped in your lap, if the first one and this dropped in your lap as a twofer, I think you could read these as just like, throwaway genre sci-fi novels and really enjoy them. I think where you'd be disappointed is that it ends on the cliffhanger of Aurak's prediction of the Liberator exploding. And then as far as Blake's 7 novelisations go, the next one to come out is 1981. And it's Trevor Hoyle's Scorpio Attack, and it jumps straight to season 4.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's like, oh, right. So that's a bit of a jump. That's a bit of a shock, which is a crying shame, because there's so much in season 2 and at the end of season 2 that could have been expanded upon even lightly. Like, I think, season 2 end with the invasion from the Andromeda Galaxy, which is all, I mean, it all comes about very, very quickly and sort of out of the blue. It's not really, I don't think there's a whole lot of ground laid for it, but the last episode of season 2, which is the last, in inverted commas, appearance of Blake, apart from his 2 additional appearances, just like in one-offs as the series goes on. You could have done a lot with that, I think, in a novelisation to expand upon some of that stuff. I mean, season 3 obviously is its own thing to some degree, but I don't know. Of course, although not by Trevor Hoyle, you've got the 4th one, which was the Series 4 continuation by Tony Attwood. And then there was the competing post-season 4 continuation, which contradicted it by Paul Darrow himself. So they're out there. I mean, I think they're quite hard to find compared to these. But you know what, John? One day maybe, we should do a comparison of the Tony Attwood one and the Paul Darrow one. Although I was looking them up, and I think they're quite hard to find for a reasonable price. And I looked on Goodreads, and the Tony Attwood one has got an average of 2.4 out of 5 or something. And there's a couple of 1-star reviews. And James said, the authentic sequel to the great TV series, only in the sense that the show could sometimes be terrible too. That was James. And Jill said, ouch, horrible sequel to Blake. There are far better fan offerings out there, perhaps even ones who understand the series. Yeah. I don't know, though. That maybe makes me want to read it even more.
yeah, give it a go.
Yeah, because you know what? There's sometimes reading shit is just as entertaining as reading something good. Hashtag fucking Dennis. And the Darrow one, which has a better overall average of 3 point something out of 5. There's a 1-starer that says, of all the books written by Paul Darrow, because he wrote loads, who knew? Of all the books written by Paul Darrow, this disaster has to be the worst. We're treated to the backstory of Avon, his parents Rogue and Rowena, and the taciturn little boy called Kerguelen. The book has numerous typographical errors throughout the volume. No doubt the editor even found it hard to get through. The portrayal of the Grant family does not match what we learned from the television series, and the portrayal of Anna Grant in particular is horrible and completely unbelievable. The sex scenes are alarming as to how either Rogue or Raven himself comports himself with the opposite sex. I was like, oh my God, that sounds weird but intriguing.
Yeah.
I think we owe it to Paul, though, John.
I think so.
I think as a tribute to Paul Darrow, maybe we should read his continuation of explaining how Avon survived.
Let's hunt him down. I mean, he is just so great. And as much as you can get enjoyment from watching Travis on there, you do miss those moments where Avon is on screen. You need more of him, because he's just a fantastic character. And I cannot think of anyone else who could play that role as well as him.
I can't think of anybody else in telly.
Cast.
Yeah.
No, not
I can't
at
think
all.
of anybody else in television who speaks to me on the weirdest level. Avon, the character and the actor, speak to me on a level and in a way that is completely unlike any other character in any other media.
It's not by chance that when I look back and I first started watching Blake 7 again, 7 or 8 years ago, I wanted to find out what Avon was up to and whether he matched up to my memory of him.
Yeah.
Because he was, as a child, he was a hero to me in the way that Robin Hood was a hero to me, or Sherlock Holmes was a hero to me in literature or in TV. I love that character, and then you watch him back and think, he's even better than I remember.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm going to have a hunt around. I mean, I think we'll get together in a few months and do another book anyway.
Great, yeah.
Whether it will be the Paul Darrow Blake 7 continuation, whether we can even find it or not, we'll definitely do something. And interestingly, unfortunately, I've already got a co-host for this, but Slade in Flame is getting a cinema and Blu-ray release in May.
Great.
It's getting remastered, and it's on May the 2nd. Slade in Flame will be released as cinemas. So even if we don't do the podcast together, I do feel like we should make some kind of effort to get together to go to the cinema and watch Flame.
That'd be good. Yeah, so some sort of like watch along thing. Because I didn't know anything about it, and I remember when I just went out to the cinema, and I don't know when they re-released it. It could have been 20 years ago, say. I don't know why it was an anniversary. And this thing hit me, and I thought, this is just superb. It's funny, and the music's great. And the acting, and there's a good story there as well. And it really took me by surprise. And I'm not sure I've seen it since I saw it on the big screen. So with the re-release, I'll go and watch it again.
Yeah. I think what we might have to do is take some time off and perhaps see if it's on a cinema in Stoke, and we'll come to Stoke for the weekend.
Yeah. Or we can go to some sort of halfway out, go to Manchester and go and watch it there. Because I'd love to go and watch it again. It's tremendous.
Yeah. Because in late April, I'm going to record an episode on it with Joe Banks, and we're going to talk about it. And also, I got the novelisation of St. Joe one as well, so we're going to be talking about the novelisation of Flame.
I had no idea.
Yeah,
superb. Yeah.
Which will be nice.
I look forward to that.
Yeah. But we should definitely go to cinema, and afterwards, after a skinful, we'll record a little Patreon extra talking about our experience of seeing Flame at the cinema. All right, well, nice good. One, John. Good to see you again, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you, Andy. Cheers.
Many thanks to John for coming back to talk about more Blake 7. I have the sense we have to come back to the adventures of Avon at some point, in some way, shape or form, but that will be down the track somewhat. In the meantime then, I'll just take time to thank our patrons. First, those without tier: Anthony Piconti, Tim Cardos, Dave Dempster and Sebastian Weetabix, and our chaos engineers: Aid Von Stout, Andrew Cicaluna, Andrew Spong, Andrew Van Ness, Anthony Porter, Benjamin Fletcher, Ben Hagar, Brandon Mays, Dan Charnley, Dave Griffiths, Dave Voxman, Gabriel Laycock, Harvey Faulkner Aston, Jim Kirkland, Jim Jupp, John W. Lays, Jules Lawrence, Mal Pertwee, Matt Saltz, Michael Hopwood, Nick Hopkinson, Ofer Ziv, Paul McRandall, PJ Cooper, Scott Butler and Simon Perrins. And of course thanks to our crafty jugaderos, Adrian Tchaikovsky, Chris Sharp, Christian Hundal, Graham Holden, Kevin Williams, Liam Turner, Loz, Mark Buckley, Mark Taylor, Matthew Broom, Murray Palmer, Sean Twist, Toby White, Taylor Lavery and Brian Henderson. Now, on Brian also goes under the musical identity of Sephiroth. And I was listening to Sephiroth a lot when I was reading Project Avalon, and should Blake 7 ever get that long-mooted reboot that it will probably never get, it should sound like Sephiroth. So I'm going to play this episode out with a track from the Sephiroth album, Delineation, and the track is called Infinite, so stay tuned for that at the end. An eternal thanks to our patron demons: Action Edmonds, Alistair Davison, Andrew Clark, Andy Darby, David Lee, Derek Clunan, Fred Quiche, Gareth Wilson, Glenn Sawyer, Greg Faulkner, Gwen Barlow, Ian Stead, Janie Stim, Jason Vogel, Joachim Sund, Joe Monty, Johan Hjarper, Jonathan Sharp, Lee Gary, Marius Slatauskas, Mark Hebden, Miles Reed-Labato, Neil Burton, Paul Hillary, Randall Gatlin, Steve Round, Tom Murphy, Tony Malazzo, the OG patron Norman Beresford, and last but never least, Robert McMillan. Okay, enough of my yakking. Don't forget you can follow us on Instagram with the handle @BreakfastRuins. You can find me on Blue Sky @BreakfastRuins. You can email us at breakfastruins@outlook.com. The webpage is breakfastintheruins.com. BITR Breakfast in the Ruins Radio is live on Radio Garden or via the web player at breakfastintheruinsradio.blogspot.com. We have our Patreon page too, of course. There are a few extra odds and sods on there. Stay tuned for Infinite by Sephiroth, and until next time, take care, stay safe, and we will meet again soon on the Moonbeam Roads.